what I've learned over the years is resilience is what it all comes down to. It's not about necessarily having the best idea or the most drive or the best productivity standards, whatever. Resilience can mean having a break so that you can come back stronger. It doesn't mean just crashing through, like that masculine energy of just like go, go, go. Like I think stepping into the like feminine energy of no, I'm gonna rest and withdraw and just like take some time, take 6 months for myself and then come back at it from a more balanced perspective. That is resilience as well.
I want to kick things off with how Babes on Waves came about. So when I was looking into your background, I came across, I think it was another podcast, maybe I read it online, but you spoke about how you face some discrimination in the workplace. And it seemed like that was sort of like the Kickstarter for you to like say, okay, cool, I'm going to leave this. I'm going to go and create my own community and do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you expand a bit upon that? Like what were you doing and what happened to you in the workplace that led to you saying, I'm going to leave and start Babes on Wave?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so I kind of have always tinkered in business, and Babes on Waves was around before. So in my last year of uni, it was originally a magazine that I wanted to launch all around spotlighting different amazing women doing different things in different industries. So like tech babes, music babes, etc. Babes on Waves. And then I was kind of like doing it as a side project while I went into the working world. So I joined this company just doing like office manager, PA stuff. And it was for a tech company. And long story short, I was being trained up to transition into a proper tech role. And there was a kind of like senior leadership changeover in my team. And suddenly that stopped. So I can't say too much because there's like some legal things around it. But
Mm,
essentially what happened was I realized very quickly that I wasn't going to be given a fair chance at progressing in this company anymore. And I went away I went on like a meditation retreat for like 10 days. I ran away after 5. That's a whole another thing.
right.
And I came back and where I'd been told that this position that I originally had been being trained up for, and then it was taken away because they said we don't need this position anymore, came back and they'd hire like a young white guy for that position. Like suddenly it was a possibility again. So from that I was like, look, I'm not going to get ahead in this company anymore and I need to start taking business seriously. And there's actually like a stat, I can't remember off the top of my head, that says about how like even though so many young Black people are starting businesses, like more than any other demographic, a lot of the time it's not because like we want to, it's because we have to. And I remember like I heard about that statistic like 2 years later and I was like, yeah, that's literally what happened to me.
Mm.
So yeah, it was more out of necessity than anything else really.
I've heard maybe I don't know if it's the same statistic or something similar around the fact that first of all, black people leave the workplace, the white collar job, corporate workplace, way higher numbers than other ethnic groups, and then black people are way more likely to start their own business. But
Exactly.
then there's funding gaps and all those kind of things, that other issues that come with that. But it's
Mm.
interesting because then when hearing your experience there, sort of like probably ties, that's like probably a stark example of why black people are first of all leaving the workplace in higher numbers and then going on to start their own thing because you're
Exactly.
going through shit in the workplace. So like, cool, the same for me.
Exactly. And I did continue to work. Like I worked in tech for another year, but I moved companies about 2 months after that incident, after the pandemic started. But yeah, for me, I was like, from that, it just kind of solidified that like, no, I need to be doing my own thing. I'm very stubborn. Like I'm not good at playing workplace politics and just like, you know what I mean? Like this guy,
Yeah.
like at one point, he was meant to be coaching me, but really it was just sessions where he would take me into a room and like take the piss out of me essentially. He'd assign me like homework. One of his homeworks was he assigned me to watch this video by like, do you know Simon Sinek?
Yeah.
And I love a lot of his stuff, but it was a video where Simon Sinek's basically talking about how like millennials are really like entitled and they think that they should deserve promotions and they don't like to work and all this stuff. And that my homework was just to watch it.
So
And
that's very
then
passive aggressive.
yeah, like I mean, more aggressive even than
Well,
passive.
why can't you just tell you
I
instead of
know,
saying?
and I'm like, and then I watched it, and then he's like, "Did you watch it?" I was like, "Yeah, I did." And then I had like prepared all these like points to kind of like, I was like, "Okay, if you want to play this game, I'll argue with you about it." And then he just wouldn't even let me speak about it. And then it was just kind of like, he's like, "Okay, let's get out your CV," and then told me how like my CV was really flighty, like jumping from career to career and having multiple jobs. And I was like, I work multiple jobs because I've been supporting myself since I was like 18. So like that's why I've worked at a restaurant and I also did this and I also did that. So yeah, so I was like, I'm kind of it was because I felt it was because I was young, first of all, which is like a big form of discrimination that we don't really speak about. It was because I was like the only like person of well, there were other people of color, but the only young black woman. And then
Mm.
also, yeah, the fact that I was a woman and I was really stubborn. So for me, it was kind of like I feel like you don't like me because of these three things, and whether or not you're actively racist or actively sexist, you're behaving in this way, and I can't really pinpoint any other reason than because of who I am.
Did they offer any explanation as to, so when you've gone your meditation retreat and then somebody else has, the roles come back and then someone else has got that role now? Did they offer any explanation as to why that happened?
Yeah, it was something to do with the location, to be fair, but I was already traveling quite a lot to the location where the place was, and I had said that I'd be happy to split my time between it. So, and I spoke to other members of the team who had seen his CV, and they were like, "Yeah, he's got nothing on you. Like, you've been being trained up for this job by all of us over like 6 months, and then this guy comes in with no experience, no personal projects, nothing." So at that point, I was like, "It can't just be like that." Like if he was, had formal experience or whatever, then fair enough. But it wasn't any of that. It was purely because this guy he didn't like me for all of these various reasons.
Yeah. And you said that you dabbled in entrepreneurship before.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. I think I've always said that I have a need to like compulsively create things. So, I had like two club nights, I had a podcast actually, like
Oh.
interviewing people with cool jobs. Like just basically dabbled in like a bunch of different stuff. And it was never like I want to go out and grow the biggest business in the world, but I always had something that I was kind of working on the side.
Mm.
Side hustler, yeah.
Yeah. And what was it that was pushing you to do all of these? Because, well, Babes on Waves and podcasts,
Mm,
all these creative sort of pursuits and endeavors. Was there something that you was what was I mean, what was it
mm.
that was pushing you to go and start all these things?
I don't know. I mean, maybe this is not the
Yeah.
maybe this is not the best thing to say, but like I did a post about this actually on Instagram recently where I do feel like people who are like truly like true entrepreneurs, right? Like the people who like compulsively create. I don't think it necessarily comes from a healthy place. I think it does. It can like for people who are like, true visionaries, but at the same time, I do feel like it comes from a need to well, part of it is like just you have an idea and you just want to do it. You just want to see what you can change in the world or whatever. But I also think for me, I'd be lying if I didn't say it came from a need to like always prove myself and always want to like I don't know, just being really hard on myself and not I could never just have a job. I always have to have the best job and have the best side business and to be doing all these things around it. It was never enough to just do one thing. Like it's more like when I say a compulsion, like like in a funny way, like, haha, I love doing things, but also it really was like I always have to be doing the next thing. Yeah, I don't know if you can relate to that as well.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that because literally just last night I was having a I was having a
Okay, phew. I'm not just like
no, I was having a conversation with my missus, and I was talking about how. So when I was growing up, I was always, I was always doing well in school. You're seen as the smart one in the group, and your parents and friends, people always expect you to do well because you're
Mm,
the smart one. So they expect, so whatever I put my hands to is going to succeed, and because of that, you don't want to fail. So
exactly,
you feel
exactly.
like you got to prove yourself. You feel like you have to always make sure it's the best and all of that. And then I'm guessing, did you have something similar when you was growing up, like some kind
Yeah,
of what expectation upon you, or?
absolutely. I mean, like as we kind of spoke about before I came on, we started this. I grew up in Thailand, so like the stereotype of like tiger mums, and I mean I hope it's okay to say, but it is like a very real thing. So growing up in school there, like my friends and I, all of our mums, it was very competitive. It was always very like you got to be doing what musical instrument you're doing, what sport are you doing. Like B's are not a thing. It's like A's or you failed essentially. Like don't bring that home. And I think as a kid actually, I wasn't. My kind of rebellion against it was I didn't really no, I didn't try. I did try, but I kind of pushed it away. But as I got older, actually, and I lived in a different country to my mum, and I wasn't even having that much interaction with her. I then it was like a thing in my head that for against myself, I would then have like internalize all these thoughts. So, yeah, I
Mm,
think it's like on one hand, culturally
yeah.
from upbringing, and then yeah, I think just going into adulthood, that like
y-
competitiveness just really like kicked in.
Yeah, yeah. And Babes on Waves is a community based. I would say it's a community based business,
Mhm.
basically. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I see it. It's a community, and then you got the business and everything around it. What was your sense of community like when you're growing up? You've grown up in so many different continents and places.
Yeah.
Gone to so many different schools. Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I think it's funny. I think If I was diagnosing myself, I think I
Mm,
probably created Babes on Waves to create my own safe space that I never really felt like I had growing up. And I had an amazing, like, privileged childhood and upbringing. Like, I know that, and I'm at a place now where I wouldn't, trade it for anything. But growing up, I did really feel alone a lot of the time because I would be, like, in the Caribbean, for a year, but then I was, like, I stood out, I was a bit weird because of the fact that we traveled a lot, and then I'd be in Thailand, but then it's weird because I'm not, like, Thai, and I can't speak the language, and then we go to boarding
mm,
school in, like, the UK in the middle of fucking nowhere, and,
mm,
I'm like, "Oh, what is this?" Like, dead vibes, like,
mm,
that I'm a city girl, like, why am I in a
yeah.
field? Like, so I feel like I constantly, to survive, was changing who I was to be able to feel like, okay, this is this version of me that I'm gonna present. This is this version of me that I'm gonna present. And it wasn't until Babes and Waves probably that I was like, no, okay, like, what do I value? Like, if I was gonna make my own family, like, build my own support system, what would that look like? What values do I want? And then put this thing out there. And then people who related to that, related to that, and they came in. And actually now, like, most of my best friends are people who came as a result of that business, whether they were members or first community members, or whether I met them at a work event or whatever. But I feel like it's been a drive. Like, I always say, I started my business actually as a way of, like, self-development rather than the kind of economic standpoint really
Mm,
initially.
yeah. And then what was it about this time just before starting Babes and Waves that made you really stop and reflect to say, all right, what do I value, etc., etc., and then this is what I'm going to do and go and build? Was there something happening at that point in time in your life?
I think actually probably was at my old job when all the, like, discrimination stuff happened and I left, and I was looking for a new job, and I was like, "Oh my God, like, so long." I mean, applied to a new job, I'm like, "Oh, I can't be bothered." Like, I hate
Yeah.
this. It was so boring. And then I was like, "Okay, well, what if I did business? Like, what would that look like?" And I was going through, like, I mean, pandemic, right? Like, it's
Mm.
crazy. That was like 4 years ago. Oh my God,
Yeah,
mad.
yeah, yeah. Time
But
flies.
yeah, and, like, I mean, everyone can probably relate. They had, like, a changeover of friends and relationship, and everything was kind of up in the air. And I was like, okay, if I'm gonna move forwards, I might as well build from the bottom and let go of everything and just see what I can kind of create from the floor up essentially.
What was your identity of your blackness like growing up?
Very complicated. Very complicated. So yeah, so I'm mixed black. So my dad's white, Scottish, and my mum's Nigerian, grew up in New York. And I growing up, I definitely didn't want to be black. And I very much struggled with that for a long time. I think partly to do with my formative years being in Thailand, where even today, like, skin bleaching is like a massive thing. Like, I remember sitting
Mm,
next to my best friend in class when I must have been like 11 in Thailand, and we had to go around and say, something about our summer, something good, something bad. And this is like my bestie, like my ride or die when I was
mm,
11. And I got to her, and then she was like, "Oh, the good thing is that I went to the beach. The bad thing is I got darker." And then it just wasn't
mm.
even
Yeah,
a thing to think of, like, you know what I mean? And that's always, like, stayed in my head so strongly. And so I would use, like, skin bleaching stuff. And I remember saying to my mom, again, even younger, I must have been like 8 or something. I remember 'cause both my brothers are a bit fairer than me. I remember saying, "Why am I not the same color as them? Like, why am I darker?" So yeah, it was definitely, like, something very complicated growing up, always being the only, like, POC, not even black girl, like,
yeah,
POC in school, like, all this stuff. And I think it was moving to London that helped me not just, like, accept being black, but actually love it. And now I, like, I built a whole community around it,
yeah,
and I actively, like, seek out those spaces. And it's really sad and scary to me that, I mean, I hope I always would have got to this point, but you never know,
mm,
right? Like, what if I
yeah,
had gone to a different uni, not in London, and would I be just dealing with that now? Like, it's, yeah, it's
yeah.
really strange to think about.
When did you move to London?
So I moved to London when I was 18. Yeah, so straight after school.
Right, okay. And then when you was in school and then going to university and that kind of thing, was it that you started to mix with other black people, and that's when you start to accept that side of you,
Never
or
at school, honestly. I mean, I had there was a like one of my I went to like 7 different schools between
wow?
13 and 18, so I've been all over the place.
Yeah.
um, so a couple of people, but it was very much like I didn't want to. Because you know these boarding schools, like, I didn't want to be seen as other. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna try and like I have the privilege of being mixed. So as much as I can, I'm gonna try and fit in with the white kids. And I'm not black. Like that's them. Like this is me. And it wasn't until uni when I came and I was like, oh my God, like like what am I doing?
Mhm.
That I really like went through that and like started to make like best friends who were black and um not just black, but like from a range of different upbringings as well. Cause I think even like when I would meet people when I was like under 18, it was still very specific. It was then just like again like private boarding school crowd, which is like a whole
Mm.
not even real life, you know? So yeah, it's been really kind of all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's all good. Set some good context actually behind you and your background and everything. Let's talk babes on waves, yeah.
Mhm,
Starting up any kind of business is gonna come with loads of challenges. You started up pandemic time.
mhm.
That's probably got to bring like its own unique set of challenges. What sort of challenges do you go through when you're starting it up? And also, actually, for people who don't know what Babes on Waves
Oh
is,
yeah.
what is Babes on
My
Waves?
definition for it changes all the time.
Yeah.
At the moment, Babes on Waves, it's the community and consultancy looking at how to empower women of color creatives and founders. So we do that through, we've got a membership, which is all around supporting the community. So that's around giving people the resources to learn to build their business, to learn to launch, to learn to actually put out into the world the things that they're working on. And then the consultancy side is we partner with bigger brands and organizations. All these places have these excuses. They have a brief or a project, and then it's all white faces or
Mm,
whatever. They say, oh well, we don't know, we don't really have enough black creatives in our
mm,
roster. So with that, the mission's all around showing them there's no excuse. Like we've got a whole community, a whole like pool of people here who you can work on any size of project, whether it's speaker, designer, photographer, like in front of or behind the camera. And yeah, kind of like crossing access from the community to the money as well
yeah,
and visibility.
yeah, yeah. And the challenges side of things, what sort of challenges did you go through when you were starting up?
Oh my God. I mean, the challenges are always gonna come. I think at the start, I think actually I had a better time than I think we launched at a very relevant time, and because everything we do is around community and connection, and that's literally what like and the pandemic, that was like one of the biggest problems that people were going through at home. Like so we actually came at a time where very much needed. I think in the beginning the challenges were around how to balance that in my own personal life. So not letting work kind of like overtake everything. And that is kind of a challenge that I'm still very much working on today. Cause I think like running a community, you're a natural service provider. Like you
Mm,
have to have the mindset of how do I give? What can I give today? Like how can I help you regardless of how I feel? And it's very like community manager burnout and stuff, like it's a very real thing. So it's something that I'm still going through and managing. And last year was like a really difficult time. It was like a big crash actually in that. But I think I'm getting better at boundaries in a way. Like I don't know if you
yeah,
can have true boundaries as a founder ever, but
yeah.
but boundaries for what works for to help me never get to that place again, I hope.
uh, do you have a team that you're working with?
As in my own team.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got an amazing team. My community manager is literally a godsend. Lalato, shout out. She
Mm,
is she is the reason why I can do things like take weekends off or go to a gym class in the week. Whereas in the first 2 years, I wasn't doing any of that. I was literally like at my desk 13 hours a day, just like hunched over. Like it was just not good.
wow, wow. So it sounds like right now then, so you've got a couple of things that you do to help manage the burnout. So you got a team around you, and then you do well, you split your time a bit better,
Yeah, I think that's it.
basically.
And even just realizing that like the work is important, but you're not saving lives. Like you can go for a walk, you can stretch your legs, you can cook a healthy meal, and actually realizing that a lot of the pressure that I was putting on myself, it was coming from me, and I was the one saying like, "Oh no, I can't go to have a break because I gotta answer these emails." And yeah, like, some you get those people who are like, "Oh, as like, why are you not responding to me?" I'm like, "Bro, chill out, it's literally been a day."
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, there are always gonna be people like that in the world, and it's up to you to enforce those boundaries and to not let it affect you. And once I realized that, I can step away from my desk now for a couple days and not be on my emails, like, all the
Mm,
time, and if people wanna freak out, like, that's your problem,
yeah.
like
What was it like in the early days when you were working on building the community in the first place? What did that look like?
Um Good question. It was really fun actually because I think I was working things out as I went along. I mean, as you always are in a
Yeah.
business, but
Yeah.
it was very much, I think it's easier to start when you've not done anything before in a way because you're just doing it because you love it and you're doing it because it's something that you want to put out into the world and you're not as scared to fail because you feel like because there's no one really watching you in the beginning.
Mm,
So I think it was great. Like it was just a lot of again, just supporting people who went on to become, my like very good friends and rooting for them, and I was like, oh my God, what? My job is like
mm,
throwing events for people who are really cool and getting to meet like all these people doing interesting things. Like that's sick. And my job is like spending an hour chatting to members on Slack. Like that's
yeah.
great. So yeah, in the beginning, definitely it was just a lot of community building, building relationships.
And then in that beginning start, when you're working on building the community and then building the business around the community, do you feel like you could have done anything better than the way they actually went about doing it in the first place? If you was to go
Mm.
back, would you have changed anything?
No, I killed it. No, I'm joking. um, I think, I mean, for me, I don't really have regret because no matter what you do, it's led you to this point. So even like the worst things that have happened to me in my life, like I wouldn't take them back because I learned so much from them. So I think even, I mean, maybe like, would I spend so much on I don't know, making like 50 t-shirts and then like maybe small things like that, which are just
Mm,
which then took ages to sell. So
mm,
maybe small things like that. But actually I think again it's all a learning experience. And even with that, I mean it's just a silly example. It's not really like it's maybe a bit superficial example,
mm,
but so many people said to me, don't order so much merch, like it's harder to sell than you think. And I
mm.
didn't listen. So I feel
Yeah,
like you have to go through things in
yeah.
order to fully like learn it yourself.
But community building is like it's a massive skill. It's like a whole bloody discipline in of itself. There's
Mm,
loads of books and whatever seminars all talking about that, and then building a community around your business or your brand and that kind of thing. And people like really, really fixate on
mm,
doing that, but because it's so important. And with yourself and over the few years, you and your team anyway, have been able to build like this thriving community.
mm,
And there's a difference in it because when I look on the socials and have a look at what you're doing, it looks like the community is not only is it like of a good size, it's like it's very much engaged and thriving
mm-hmm.
because you can have a massive community but nobody talks to each other. And it's like, right, it looks good on paper. You can see you've got X amount of members, but you've got like a very engaged community.
Definitely, yeah.
Was there something like, how did you go about building such an engaged community?
Yeah, I think that was something that was like very important to me in the early days because so even when Babes and Waves started, it was never meant to be what it was. It was just a meetup group once a month virtually. It was 10 of us and we'd come together. I'd like do a lot of Googling, I'd make a presentation, I'd share what I'd learned, and then we'd talk about it as a group.
Mm,
So in the early days, it was that was all it was meant to be. And then the pandemic hits, and then I'm thinking about what I could do, and I'm researching. And then I came across membership clubs, like business membership clubs. And I'm
mm,
like, wait a second. I'm like, I swear this is what I do.
mm,
And I joined a couple and I was like, oh great, like I can be part of one. And number one, they were all very white. And I was a bit like, okay, where's the spice? But and then number two, it was just like it was just people promoting their own stuff and no one was
uh,
actually helping each other or wanting to talk. It was very much like, "Here, I'm selling this ebook for
mm,
whatever."
yeah.
And I was like, "This is just dead vibes, man."
Mm,
And so when I went back to my members, I said, "I think we've got a great thing here. How would you feel about chipping in like £10 a month and then I'll use that money to hire someone who actually knows what they're talking about instead of me Googling shit?" I was like, how does that feel? And
mm,
everyone was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." And then they told their friends and they told their friends and it grew. And like the rule like everyone always says set your community rules and I never really did anything that formal but we always had like a no self promo rule
yeah.
and always that like you have to be a giver not a taker mindset. So it's all well and good, you're obviously in these spaces because you're investing in yourself and you want to learn and you want to grow for yourself, but you can always very quickly spot the people who are just there to do that in a selfish way, and they're not there to learn like the power of collaboration. They're not there because they think anyone else has anything of value. They're just literally there to like post and run.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think it was just always like repeating that, always encouraging that, and then people really liked that, and people were like genuinely rooting for each other. Like people became really good friends. Like like one babe got married and a couple of babes went to her wedding. Like it was always that mindset of, is there a way that we can be friends and be on this journey together and not just this transactional creative industry kind of setup that we have in London, where it's very
Yeah.
much what can you give me and what am I willing to give you for that?
Yeah. And then when did the consultancy part come into it?
So that came I think that came in year 2 actually. So it started out with just events and brands reaching out to us wanting to like showcase the community. And then I've always said like something that I feel like I am really good at is seeing the potential in people. And so many of our first members or people that I found on Instagram that then I spoke to, developed a relationship, and then brought them into the community were people who were very, very new. But like I was like, there's just something about this person. Like there's just something special about this person. And then very quickly, like these brands would then be like, oh, like we're looking for like a DJ, but we don't want to use anyone we've used before. And then I'd be like, this person, they've only got like
Mm.
100 followers, but that doesn't matter. I'm telling you, like they're sick, they've got good vibes. And then now that person will have gone on and gotten multiple jobs from it. So I think very quickly they realized that it's not all about clout and it's not about followers and it's not about personal brand. It's literally just about finding someone who brings that feeling of that makes you want to be around them. And I think
Yeah.
Babes and Waves is very much a community of people who all have that spark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you was building up Asian Ways and Wales, you got a few grants.
Yeah.
First, how do you even go about
Oh,
finding
sorry.
them?
That's my reaction.
It
Oh my gosh.
was like a good or bad reaction.
Oh my gosh. Don't even get me
Or
started.
hassle.
It's such a hassle. And I know I
Yeah.
should be out here like, oh, grants. Because like they have helped. They have helped so much, and they've meant that Babes and Waves can keep existing to this day. It is a long process, and there's really not enough. They like to make it as difficult as possible, is
Yeah.
what I really resent about it. Because I'm like, look, I know I've got to do an application, I know I've got to do a video pitch, but it's like the little finicky things that there's not really enough support on how to teach people to access these sources, especially people who like might not have gone to university or might have left school early. Like what I mean, at that point, like how are you gonna know like automatically how to write a grant bid?
Yeah.
And there's just really not enough support, I think, out there.
There's a lot of there's some organizations that help with grant bids I've come across, but I
Mhm.
feel like when you tell me some of them are
They're
really trying
expensive.
to dupe our people,
Yeah,
man.
and then
Uh,
you have to commit to like if they give you a grant, you gotta charge them like an hourly rate, and then you gotta give them a percentage of your winnings. And again, I get it, but I'm like these people. I'm hiring you because I got no money. Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
you know what I mean?
I was talking to someone, and she was 'cause when I was trying to set up we set up a community interest company recently,
Mhm.
but for those voices, and I didn't know how to do it. I hadn't looked, but I didn't know how to do. I didn't know it was a simple process.
Mm.
So I'm trying to set it up, and I put out a message, and someone reached out, and she was charged. She was saying like, yeah, we can set up for you for £1,000,
Mm.
and then we can help you write a grant. It was I don't know, it was charging a few thousand to write a grant
Yeah,
proposal. And then I looked, and I ended up looking. I checked to set up a community interest company cost like £19, I think it was, or
yeah,
27, one of the two, and
yeah.
the form was easy. And I'm thinking like,
Honestly, this
she
is
was
the
wanting
thing.
£1,000,
1,000.
1,000 to set it up, and then an extra couple thousand to
That's
write
so
like.
rude.
But it's crazy. But and I've come across quite a few people. Maybe they position themselves as like a specialist or whatnot. But I've come
Mm.
across quite a few people. But we've got a couple grants, and one of them was super unexpected. One, then we had to go and do the application and that. And I've applied for a couple others, which are hopefully we're still waiting for the outcome.
Mhm.
But they are long.
Mm.
Like they ask for one will ask for 1 minute pitch, one will ask for a 2 minute
Yep.
pitch, some will ask for send us a PowerPoint presentation, answer all of these questions, 200 words each. They're all very different and very long. They're not easy.
Absolutely. Yep.
They're quite finicky to do. Like how do you go about finding decent ones? Is there
I haven't looked in a while, so my advice might be a bit outdated because the last one I got broke my spirit last year. It was a big one, but I'm still recovering.
what happened? Was it just a long
It was just
process?
a long, long process. It came at the end of. I mean, the application was long. It's one of the most competitive grants in the UK. So I knew that going
Hmm.
in, and I'd gotten a small one once from them, and I'd applied 2 years in a row for the big one, and I kept getting rejected, even though my application they give you feedback, which is a really great thing.
Yeah.
And I applied for two, And yeah, essentially you have to put in, there's all this paperwork that you have to do alongside the actual application, all these numbers and stuff, but it's not really clear the guidance around what you should and shouldn't put. And the total amount is for 50,000, and you have to put in all your costs as you're applying, like on this platform, like you literally put your numbers in. And all the categories are things I didn't really understand what they meant. I didn't
Mm.
understand at that point the difference between, like, I didn't know what materials were, I didn't know what labor versus subcontracting was, etc. And and it said on the thing, it says your total costs must not exceed 50,000. I was like, okay, cool. Just put some numbers
Mm.
in, and at that point, you don't know exactly the amount. And then I was like, as long as it's below 50,000, that's all cool. So I put in like 49,900 and like 90. So like £10 off. I was like, that sounds good.
Yeah, yeah.
Submit. And at that, I mean, I'm saying like submit, but at that point, I'd been working on this for ages. Like, we had loads of deals that we had been working on had fallen through, like on the kind of consultancy side. I wasn't really feeling the membership at that point because I was so burnt out from the community management aspect of it. And I was like, I need this grant. I just need a win. Like, I need one. I was going through like a lot of personal stuff. And then the next day, again, automatic decline, and you had to have put 50,000 exactly. And because I had put £10
Oh.
less, they said, we're not going to read it, we're not going to look at it. And one of my one of my friends was with me, and I just start crying, and I call them up, and I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't tell the story. It makes you sound so unhinged. I was like, I'm not getting off the phone until you until you read it. And they're like, there's nothing we can do. I was like, transfer me to someone. I'm not getting off the phone. I'm literally just crying. The guy is just like, there's literally nothing I can do. Um, and yeah, but it has a happy ending because even though that one didn't get viewed, I got the other grant that I had applied to. So that's
Mm.
been the grant that I've just come to the end of the 12 months with. But yeah, but I was like, I understand, but there was no clear guidance. There was also no empathy. And I think it's just a way to kind of like, because so many people are so competitive that I think it's a way to easily root out people actually. And I don't think that is a very kind approach, but then I guess,
Yeah.
money isn't kind. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds like that was kind of like breaking point, literally.
yeah.
Like a lot of shit happening at the same time, and then since then you just haven't gone back to grants. And I'm guessing you've just been focusing on building the community and the consulting side of things. And
Yeah, I mean, even like last year, we spent a lot of time kind of going back to the why. Like, first of all, I took a lot of time, not offline completely, but not pushing. I've always been, as we said, like pushing, 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 pushing. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? 10 projects at once, 10 pitches at once, 10 grants at once, like just always pushing. And then I had like a breaking point from a lot of different things. And then the grant was kind of the final nail, whatever. And then I was like, I just need to like breathe. I was like, I just need to not be pushing. And I was still working a lot, but I was just not going after things with such force. And I went away. I went back to Thailand for a month on my own. I went to like a fitness camp. Just spent every day like
I
hiking,
saw
and
on your Insta,
yeah, it's now
kickboxing.
like a yearly tradition that I'm gonna have. So I went back
Mm.
actually in Jan. And yeah, I did my breath work like certification to do like breath work teaching because it's been really helpful for me, and just kind of like spending time, okay, like outside of work and hustle in London, like who actually am I and what am I working towards? Because all I'm working towards is this feeling of like needing validation and needing success and wanting the money and wanting the Forbes 30 under 30. And I was like, I don't actually like, this is all ego stuff. It's not below the surface stuff. It's not anything that really speaks to myself and speaks to my heart, if that makes sense. Um, so yeah, so last year was very much like going through that process, taking time. And now I'm starting to pick up pace again a little bit and think, okay, that's been great, but obviously I do need to like make some progress as well,
Yeah,
and think about the future. So experimenting with what are some ways we can move the business that feel more aligned and feels a bit not as driven by success in terms of what I see on social media and thinking, okay, well, they have that, I should probably want that.
what sort of realizations did you come to during that period of reflection and stuff?
Yeah, sorry, I'm like getting like
Yeah.
um I think I really realized that, and maybe this sounds, I don't know, but I don't actually care about a lot of success metrics that I thought I cared about. So I keep using Forbes 30 and 30 as an example because it was like a recent thing. And when I was like, I don't know, 20, when I first did Bow, the password to my like literally like first landing page that was Babes on Waves was like Forbes under 30, and I was like,
I hope you've
manifest.
changed all your passwords now.
Yeah. Oh, no, no, I'm joking. I have.
Yeah.
um, and then yeah, and then I applied, and then I got rejected, and then I was like waiting for the devastation to come or whatever, and I was like, I actually don't give a shit. I was like, I don't actually care about all this stuff, and for the first time in my career, I'm genuinely like just happy for people achieving things, and maybe that makes me sound like a bit of a bitter person. I hope it doesn't, but you know what I mean? Like, just being honest here, like, we're all in the creative space, and it's easy to see someone doing something, and then you can be very happy for them, but you can also feel like what they have takes away from what I think I want or what I think I'm entitled to or whatever. And I just have been really realizing that actually, like, I don't really care about working with brands just to work with brands, which was a
Mm,
goalpost of mine for ages. I wanted to be able to say, like, I've worked with Nike, like, I've worked with Google, and although all these things are nice and they help amplify the mission, as long as I am helping people, as long as I am earning enough to maintain my lifestyle, as long as I'm, working in a way where not all I'm doing is working, I don't really care how it happens. I don't need to have all these tick box things. I don't need everyone to know my name. I don't need to have like a million followers. I'm quite happy with where I'm at in my career as long as it's sustainable.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
Mm,
If we're going back onto the Babes and Waves and like the business around it,
mm,
how did you go around converting the social people that follow you on social media? And yeah, maybe like I don't know if you count them as community. I guess you would like outside maybe community members and
hmm.
whatnot. That
The
are
kind of audience to the community.
basically yeah, people that are plugged into Babes and Waves and yourself and that. How do you go about first of all converting them into paid community members
Mhm.
and yeah, but how do you go about converting those people into paid community members?
I think we were lucky in that it was always quite natural, and although I work fucking hard, like, don't get me wrong, and community building comes very naturally to me. Like luck is a big part of anyone's like success, and I think again, as I said, like in the beginning, people were like desperate to find a space that where they could connect with each other. For instance, and that Babes and Waves was that. So we never really had to do a lot of pushing and like dragging people like, and I think if you're having to like pull people along, like your product isn't right or the way your messaging isn't right. And I think for us, we just have always focused on, okay, like genuinely, who can I like spotlighting the stories that we find inspirational. So the stories of connection in our community. Like I said, the people who met on a Babes and Waves shoot and then now they're like going to each other's weddings, or, the people who were matched 1 month and now like they're directing a whole like campaign for that person's day job. So focusing
Mm,
on those stories that I genuinely get so excited about when I hear them. And then other people kind of see that and then want to be part of it. And then also focusing on, like, as I said, like I've never really cared about, like, at one point maybe I was chasing working with brands or whatever, but I've never cared about clout in the sense of, like, in the way, again, this feels controversial, but like I feel like the London creative scene, it is very cloudy. It is very much like you do things just to be seen doing them, and I've never wanted to be in that space. And I do feel there's a whole group of people out there we're so talented and like are doing amazing things, but they don't want to be going to PR events like every week just to get the message out there. They don't want to be, I don't know, going to certain spaces just again to play the game. And although that means that maybe the journey is slower, I think we've attracted people have seen that in us, and they've seen like, no, this is the space for like genuine like conversation, genuine collaboration, and I want to be part of that. And again, like I'm not trying to like be disrespectful. Like if you love going to like the PR events and all that, like that's completely fine. It's just there's a space for you no matter who you are or what you want. You just need to be true to that and find the spaces that align with that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. If you was to go back 4 years,
Mhm.
what would you do, if anything, differently to what you've already
Back to
done?
2020.
Yeah.
What would I do differently business wise? I don't know. I don't know if there is anything. I guess maybe manage my, but I don't think I think it's hard to manage your boundaries at the start of building a business. I don't know if it is
Mm,
possible to say, oh, I wish I had respected boundaries and then not burnt out. Because I think again, you kind of have to go through things. Because I thought I was special. I was like, there's always people out here who are like really successful and they're like, I'm burnt out. And I was like, oh, well, you just whatever. You like, and I'm like, oh, poor you. You should take a break. I'm not gonna
Mm.
take a break, but you should take a break. And I always kind of like had pride in myself for that. So I don't think I could have done it differently, even if I wanted to. Um, yeah, genuinely, I don't think there is anything. Maybe like not undercharged,
Yeah,
but that's probably it.
yeah. Right. How did you go about setting your setting your pricing?
um, Oof, very, very badly. Very, very, very based on a scarcity mindset. And again, I think sometimes we go almost too much in the other direction. Like, I think very much I'm not comfortable with either narrative. I'm not comfortable with like, um, doing things for, like, especially now, I'm not doing things for free. I'm not doing things unless I really believe in the mission. I'm not trying to like work with a big like a dream brand just because it's going to give me exposure or whatever. But at the same time, I think there are certain spaces and opportunity like things that come up where the budget isn't there, and instead of being like burning a bridge and making a whole thing about it, you can just say, look, this isn't for me because of this reason. However, I really want to work on this project. So here are the ways where I feel comfortable getting involved. So
Mm.
I think just having a bit of a more nuanced view on that, yeah, I think that's kind of how we've gone about it actually. Maybe
Yeah.
leaning a bit towards scarcity mindset and thinking, shit, if I don't work with this person, like, will I never get an opportunity ever again? But actually now I've been saying no to more things than I've ever said no to in my life, and it feels amazing. Because like there was like one week where I looked at my diary and I was like, I've only got 2 meetings this week. I was like, oh my gosh, like freedom. I was like
Mm.
texting everyone I knew. Obviously, when it then came to the day, I was like, I actually don't want to see anyone. I just want to sleep. But yeah, it's very freeing, I think, to be able to have time in this like environment and like economic climate now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. What's next for Babes on Waves?
Oof, good question. We've got different things. So we're having a little like switch up with the membership, which we will be talking about in a few weeks. We've got a big talent pool, so we've got so typically the way companies have worked with us is they've come to us and they've paid us a fee, and then we go then and do the research and connect them to people. But now we're trying to think about how can we take ourselves out of the equation and give direct access to our community. So we're gonna start making our internal talent pool like widely available essentially without having to like come through the barrier of us. And that'd be really exciting because it just mean hopefully that more up and coming people will be able to get discovered, because even our public directory on the website, like all the time, like the brands and like people use it all the time. And literally the other day I was somewhere and then one of my friends messaged me and she was like, I've just walked into a cafe and someone's on your website looking at your directory.
Oh.
So yeah, basically just making that bigger and more streamlined. And then we've also got a personal project at the moment called Busy Babes, which is, well, Babes and Waves is all around how can you grow a business. Busy Babes is around how do you grow a life around your business. And it's creating spaces for entrepreneurs, creatives, and even just like really busy career girlies to come together and find rest and do networking things that aren't like having to go to a party or go to like a massive event. Like, a walk can be networking. Let's go on a
Mm.
walk out of London on the seaside and meet some cool people. So I'm like really excited about that personally
That sounds
because
really cool.
yeah, I'm like I just want to go on walks and I want some friends to come with me.
Yeah.
So
That sounds really cool.
so yeah.
Thank you so much. You got any final words before we wrap up?
I probably should have prepared some words of wisdom. But no, I would just say that things are really tough, I think, right now. But I think what I've learned over the years is resilience is what it all comes down to. And I spoke about this on another podcast recently, actually, but it's not it's not about necessarily having the best idea or the most drive or the best productivity standards, whatever. It's basically resilience, and resilience means different things. Like resilience can mean having a break so that you can come back stronger. It doesn't mean just crashing through like that masculine energy of just like go go go. Like I think stepping into the like feminine energy of no, I'm gonna rest and withdraw and just like take some time, take 6 months for myself, and then come back at it from a more balanced perspective. I think that is resilience as well. And we're coming into summer and the weather's nice.
Mm.
Maybe we all need to do a bit of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, really, really enjoyed this actually. Learned a lot as well. So
Yeah, it went quick.
yeah, it did. I don't know how long we've been talking for.
Yeah, I'm
I
like, what
haven't,
sense of time?
yeah, I haven't really been paying attention. But thank you so much for coming down. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime. And that's that. We had Jasmine Douglas on the podcast, founder of Babes and Waves. And for now, people, we're out.